Hello everyone, Olga-Show. Today is June 11th and we're already in San Francisco. Yesterday we have been in Mountain View, California. San Francisco is very close to Silicon Valley, and of course they have a lot of conferences and summit, as today we are at Cassandra Summit here at Fort Mason. It's a big, used to be Army space and now is given to technology and cultural events. Cassandra Summit happening about fourth time, and here we have one of the partners who actually is speaker as well, and the name of the company Gazart.
Gazang.
Gazang.
Yeah,
Gazang.
close enough.
See,
Yeah.
close enough, because it's always remind me of gas. It's like we use it for gasoline, but it's Gazang. G-E-A-Z-Z-A-N-G.
Close. G-A-Z-Z-A-N-G.
A&G. Very good. But it's only 2 years old company, and I met them today, so I can learn as I go. And tell us, why did you decide to become a partner with Cassandra Summit, and what brought you down here?
Yeah, sure. So Gazang, we provide encryption and key management with a focus on big data solutions. A lot of our prospects that we talk to and a lot of the people that we meet are looking at rolling out new big data solutions for analytics and what have you on systems like Cassandra and the DataStax version of Cassandra, but perhaps they've got data in there that's sensitive, that falls under various compliance regulations like HIPAA or PCI, or maybe they're just collecting PII data and they want to kind of be good stewards of it. And so they have needs around encryption at rest and key management. So Gazang offers a solution around that, and we find that coming to the big data conferences and working with people like DataStax, we're able to provide other attendees here who are maybe looking at a system like Cassandra and finding out that it won't solve their needs due to compliance issues. Well, if you kind of add Gazang into the mix, we can give them a more robust solution and help them get those projects going.
Where your company is located, the headquarters?
Sure, we're located in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is a great town. If you've never been down there, you should come down and check it out. It's kind of the little Silicon Valley of Texas. A lot of innovation going on down there.
Because of the university?
The university, there's some premier venture capital down there, and just shout out for Texas. It's a very entrepreneurial state, a lot of problem solvers and innovators, really easy to operate down there. And we also had some local hits like Dell and Tivoli and Vignette, and it really just attracted a strong base. And now we have a lot of serious manufacturing like Samsung, GM's building a design center. It's really just taken off down there.
Well, I'm aware of big data, but when the people talk about Texas, and you're from Texas, it's always big state, and big whatever. Everything big in Texas, right?
Exactly.
So you all prepared for it with your company.
Yeah, precisely.
Not only that, you will help to protect that data coming up, because you will give encryption.
Mm-hmm.
You also provide the key for that encryption, and you run the companies. The companies could be internationally located anywhere.
Yeah, that's a great point. So some of the companies that we work with, they are interested in using public cloud. Because of the elastic nature, you can run some amazing things with Hadoop and Reduce and all that type of stuff. And so they want to use the public cloud, but they fall under kind of the EU privacy laws, and they're real concerned about data custodian issues. And so given that our key management comes in a software form factor, what many people will do is move the data into the public cloud, use our encryption agent to encrypt it, but then the key manager is located somewhere behind an EU firewall. Therefore, if Amazon or whomever is ever compelled to hand over the data, without the keys, it's all useless, and the keys are directly managed by the organization themselves, allowing them to operate across the board there.
I noticed that you have a ring. What is it? Is it university ring or?
Yeah, University of Texas. Yeah.
Austin, Texas.
Austin,
or different?
Texas.
Okay, so you stay in the city, you grew up there, and you're just traveling, because similar rings they have NBA people or all this football player.
Mm-hmm.
This looks like you do exercise as well, moving those storage units, but you don't need that because you're in software industry.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't provide the physical storage. We don't provide the infrastructure. What we do is you can kind of pick your IT infrastructure, private cloud, public cloud, wherever you want to do it. You can install our encryption software seamlessly into that, and it installs and creates a virtual encrypted file system. And what that means is you don't have to do any special build out within your IT infrastructure. You don't have to change the applications. The encryption is offered kind of as a file level system service without having to make any modifications. And we will go into whatever environment you want to work in, but we don't sell the storage ourselves.
Now, in terms of the pricing models, would it go by software per company, and doesn't matter how many users you have, because you will provide the one key? How does that work, pricing model?
Yeah, so the pricing model is pretty straightforward. It's enterprise software, so this is always very flexible, but basically there's one fee, and our pricing isn't public, so I'll just kind of talk in opaque terms. There's one fee for the key manager, right? So the key manager is so much per month, and it's MRR on an annual basis. And then we price for each node where the encryption software is being protected. So for instance, let's say you have a 100 node Hadoop cluster that you're running on a persistent basis, right? So it'd be one price for the key manager, and then another fee for each of the nodes that we're offering the encryption protection.
And now when it's come to more protected, let's say it's clinical and preclinical data, when we're talking biotech and big pharma, would it cost more, or it doesn't matter, or it could be small businesses?
Yeah, no, the pricing is not tied to the volume of data. The pricing is not tied to the amount of data that's being protected. It's tied to, the key manager, and then if you want redundant key managers, things like that, and then the number of servers, right, that interface to the storage upon which the encryption is going to be installed.
Very good. Now, being in different countries, I guess you will have special access, and that software will protect you. You have to go through a special password area. Let's say I'm not the key manager, but I'm just a user. Should I go through special protection? How that will work? Would you install something into my laptop or computer, or it's need to be installed in somewhere cloud service?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we don't offer like hard drive protection for the laptop, right? What we're mostly focused on is server level encryption. Our software provides process-based access control, and I can talk about that in a minute. But in terms of user management, you would rely on your standard kind of identity management systems, be it LDAP or Active Directory or what have you. We don't offer anything in terms of the role or user-based management. What we do offer is, you can create an encrypted mount point. Let's say you're encrypting an entire device, and you create an alias for that device. Let's call it, sensitive data.
Right.
Then, in order for a process on the server to be able to access the data, you have to actually create a specific itemized list of which processes can access the data. So in this case, you'd say Cassandra D, Cassandra daemon can access the data, maybe some stuff around Hive, and then perhaps there's some cron jobs that run occasionally. And you would say these processes can access that data, and then only those processes would be allowed by our software to interact with the data. Other processes wouldn't even see it. But then, in terms of managing user access to those processes, you deploy your standard kind of identity management security practices.
And because it's an open source, do you think it's good or bad?
Do you mean Cassandra itself is
yes.
open source?
Pluses, minuses, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean the open source, so open source drives a lot of innovation. The open source community is very active. I think a lot of these open source projects like Cassandra wouldn't exist without the effort of the community. But then I think DataStax does a really good job of adding value on top of that. DataStax has some interesting security built into it. If you need help in terms of how to, configure and deploy this thing in production, you're not really going to get that from the open source community. They're not very services oriented, they're more code oriented. And so I think the open source community does a good job of getting the projects teed up and tied, provides tons and tons of value. But then, getting it into the enterprise, there's always that kind of enterprise fit stuff that has to be taken care of, and that's where companies like DataStax come in and do a fantastic job. So I think it's a good symbiotic relationship.
And then I'm always wondering, when people in some sort of business or industry, when you have been a child, for instance, what did you dream about? Did you dream about big data and Cassandra Summit or something else?
Yeah, well, so I will be honest, ever since I was a wee lad, I always wanted to go into computer programming, as odd as that sounds. So I'm the VP of marketing at Gazang now, but I started off writing code, and I always wanted to write code for a number of reasons. One, I didn't want to do a lot of travel, so that's changed through the years, and I knew that computer programmers went to the same place to do their job every day. Two, my dad introduced me to programming back in 1981 when the Sears Business Centers opened up and they started selling the first versions of the IBM home computers. I started writing little games back then and was just hooked. It was some of the most fun stuff I've ever done. So ever since I was a wee lad, I knew that, outside of a breakout career in some professional sport, which I never came close to, I was going to work in software and computer programming. As sad as that sounds, I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do when I was 10.
Well, that's, I don't know why it's sad. Probably actually wonderful that you could continue to do, maybe traveling you have more, but then you are in California, so that's probably sunny, not as hot as in Texas.
It's 100 degrees in Texas right now, so yeah, this is a little bit nicer.
I mean, this is like 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's nice view, it's ocean, it's San Francisco Bay.
Mm-hmm.
That's very good. And I travel to Dallas, Texas in July, so it's 110 or 115. So
yeah,
I know how that feels.
Remember, when you get to Dallas, all you have to know to say is "Go Cowboys."
Okay, go Cowboys.
Go Cowboys. Yeah,
okay, then yes, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna eat buffalo steak again. Cannot wait. This is very unusual steak, and I like how they prepare it there. And it's definitely different. I like how police wear that different uniforms compared here. I don't think they wear hats much here in California.
No, yeah, it's every jurisdiction kind of has their own thing.
So, but I noticed that police looks different and highway patrol looks different in Texas, but in uniform wise. So, but that's just my experience because I travel there. And coming to big data, I know that's becoming a big problem in the future because coming from biotech and big pharma, we have to save our data created even by me need to be saved for next 100 years.
Right.
And of course we want to save it forever. How do you see that solved in the future?
Yeah, so there's a lot of innovative things happening. Like the current operating procedure is, data has some somewhat useful life, and then you back it up to tape, encrypted, and you send the tapes to a physically secure location. So that's how it's doing today, but there are companies starting to emerge where what they do is they treat some of the cloud-based storage options, if you will, as kind of warm backups for these data. And they're claiming that with the availability of massive amounts of storage in the cloud and the cost going down, and with things like solid state drives and all that type of stuff, that today some companies are offering, but maybe 5-10 years it'll be kind of a standard thing where the notion of taking the data, backing it up onto a tape, putting the tape on a truck, and having the truck drive it to some secure location will be gone. And what it'll actually be is just all like semi-warm storage up in the cloud using big data solutions.
And of course, encryption is going to help to even secure the data, but again, hopefully it wouldn't deteriorate the disk because we still use disks to some degree.
Right.
So that's some concerns I have.
Well, and one of the interesting things about the Hadoop file system, which is particularly interesting here, is those file systems are designed, one of the design principles of the file system is that the hardware will fail, right? And some of the disks will fail and become unusable. And so what they do is they write the data in multiple locations, and it all just kind of happens seamlessly. And so really fascinating stuff around huge amounts of data, redundancy, accounting for hardware failures, all those types of things are kind of changing the way we think about massive, kind of data storage, like just pure backup storage going forward.
Coming from scientific world, I know that when we enter the data, we want to be sure that nobody come to that data and interfere with the data in good and bad ways. so it stay in their virgin file.
Oh, like hermetically sealed.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So how that's your software perhaps can help with that?
That's an interesting question. That's not something we tackle today. With our monitoring solution, which is a part of our encryption and key management, we can definitely, well, no, in fact, actually,
Like monitoring.
so here's the way you do that. If you have data that you want to keep in a pristine state, what you would do is tightly manage access to the key, because the key is completely necessary to be able to modify that data. With our key management server, we've got a lot of interesting ways that we can manage the key. So, say for instance, somebody wants to go and modify some file, set of data that's been sealed. The results have been sealed. It's a DNA sequencing thing, whatever the case may be. To be able to modify it, you have to first get the key from the key manager. With our zTrustee key manager, you can actually create multi-factor authentication around the release of the key. Let's say I'm the scientist and you're kind of the lab supervisor, if you will, or whatever the roles would be. I go into the system to try to get, access to it. Our encryption agent calls out to the key manager to get the key. You can actually create policies that say that key will only be released after a human being has reviewed the request and approved it. So you would get a request saying, hey, the key for, scientific data set 123 is being requested. I'm the key manager and I'm notifying you on your mobile phone that this is happening. Should I allow the request or not? That then gives you time to go inquire as to why is the key being requested, what are the changes that are going to be made. This data set has been hermetically sealed, right? We're going to allow the audit, we're going to allow the change, but only with proper audit trail, blah, 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 blah. You make that decision. If you hit yes and approve it, the key's released. We can now modify the data. If you say no, the data simply can't be modified.
Wonderful.
That's a very interesting use case, yeah.
Yes, so it's...
We're going to start selling that next week.
Okay. Should I get any percentage out of it? Because I always look into secure data, their privacy, and many other details. As a scientist, we have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
So anyway, the other thing is, how big is your company? And looks like 2 years old, and you're growing fast.
Yeah, so a couple years old down in Austin, Texas. We're around 30 employees now, definitely growing fast. We started off with a focus on encryption and key management for databases, and then realized, this big data thing was coming and it just kind of hit us like a truck. And we said there's, lots of new projects coming up. The projects typically involve, lots and lots of nodes and clusters. People need a solution around endpoint encryption. The partners are fantastic to work with, DataStax, and so, we've now kind of pivoted and are very focused on big data solutions and then also just cloud solutions in general.
Wonderful. So I'm pretty sure I will see you some other conferences coming up in San Francisco, because I cover all Silicon Valley, so I'm like you, one who knows changes. What's happening in Silicon Valley basically affect everything else, but apparently what's happening in Austin, Texas also affects Silicon Valley and the rest of the world.
Yep.
At least definitely make us feel more secure.
Yeah.
So if you wish to our viewers, what would you wish them?
So what we find is a lot of people are looking at big data projects and they're looking at cloud, and there's just a general level of uncertainty around the ability to execute the projects in a compliant way. So the thing that I would encourage people to consider is, Gazang isn't necessarily the entire solution to how you can move to the public cloud in a secure fashion using, things like DataStax, Cassandra, but it's a lot more secure than you would think, and there are several studies coming out that indicate, public cloud solutions are in many cases much more secure than the private cloud operations that people are using. So if you're thinking about big data, but security or compliance concerns are holding you back, reach out to us, Gazang, GAZZANG.com, and I think you'll find that the water is a lot safer than you might think it is.
Thank you, and that was Cassandra Summit with DataStax here in San Francisco, and we had business, you're VP of,
Yeah, so Sam Haywood, Vice President of Marketing at Gazang. Extensive background in products and product development, and just have a blast.
graduate of Austin, Texas. With beautiful ring in it, yes. Go Austin, Texas. No, go Cowboys.
Hook 'em horns. And go Cowboys. Exactly.
Go Cowboys,
You
yeah.
got it.
I'm learning. I learned quick. And here Olga-Show with you, and we're gonna be with you next time. So stay with us. Bye.